So, a while back, I interviewed a dancer who had a really tough first night at a milonga. Her story wasn't really that unusual, but at the time it was unusually honest. And what happened next said a lot about the tango community. A lot of people reacted. Some were defensive, of course. Some recognized the problem. And suddenly we were all talking, not just about her, but about us as a whole community. This episode isn't about assigning blame, really. It's more about looking at systems and culture and the quiet choices we make that shape whether someone feels welcome or walks away. If you've ever been new to something or stood at the edge of a room unsure how to step in, this one is for you. Like, we have this opinion that the newcomers need to do the work and earn a place among us. Like, they need to do their homework and they need to understand all this stuff about tango, which might be true. That does exist in the world. Like, there are certain groups of people with extremely esoteric knowledge where you have to do your homework and prep yourself before starting. But who's going to do that? Like, what kind of context do people do that in? Right? It's more like if I want to master the art of yoga and I want to be considered one of the experts on yoga, I'm going to seek out specific teachers and study with them, and I will do the work of prepping myself, right? But that's the kind of case. But what kind of people come to social dance? The people who want connection with other people, they're not seeking to go on a pilgrimage and commit 20 years of their life to some sort of spiritual trajectory, which does happen through tango. Tango stimulates all of this change and life lessons and all that. But that's not what they're coming for. And then, of course, the tango community or the tango dancers, some of them might say, well, tango is not for everyone. C'est la vie. Tango is not for everyone. Sure, that's true. Tango is not for everyone. However, are you going to be okay with taking on responsibility of proclaiming who is it for and not? You want to look at someone and judging by who they are in this moment, you just want to be the one to say, well, it's not for everyone. So therefore, I don't need to connect with this person. I don't need to dance with them. We all know how profound tango is, how much it transforms you and gives you all of this incredible connection. And it just really is a force, right? It's a force. And to say that somebody should not be exposed to it because it's not for them, I wouldn't want to be that person. I don't want to be the reason why somebody might say, no, I'm not going to give tango a try. I think it is our responsibility as dancers to pass tango on to as many people as possible. Yes, we have every right to sit in the corner and say oh, we're just special and you need to do all this stuff to be a part of our scene, right? You need to know the rules. You need to understand the line of dance. You need to do all this work, right? But at the same time, don't we want more dancers on the dance floor? And we have organizers who want to have their milongas full. And we want teachers with more students. And we want teachers who get paid more. And we want cheaper milongas and cheaper festivals. And we want more places to go and dance. And we want to go in and have more leaders to dance with. We want both of those things. And it's when people come to us, we can say, oh, well, if it's not for you, don't worry about it, right? But I think for me, I think of it as more, what's the end result that I'm sort of promoting or that I want to see for myself? Like, I want to have more dancers to dance with. I want to have better dancers, but like, we need more people coming in. We need to have people not be so intimidated, right? Because most people are not going to have that strength. Like, it's like the gym, you're going into a gym, and if your coach that you hire expects you to automatically bench press an obscene amount of weight and do all this stuff, like, you're going to leave feeling like you're not good enough. Is that going to encourage you to continue? Are you going to feel good about it to continue to go? Probably not, right? Because you were overwhelmed. Like, there was too much asked of you. And in order to, I think, make it possible for someone to gain that insight and respect into the tango culture and be interested in learning the capaceo, like, there's got to be some sort of a bridge. When I started, I did not like tango. I wasn't into tango. I was into the guy that got me to tango. I was like hanging around him a lot. I was interested in him. And then my favorite milonga was the alt milonga in Dallas. It was on a Thursday night once a month. It was at a wine bar, and it was all alt. And it was the cheesiest, most cliche alt that you could possibly imagine. And I loved it. That was like the night I lived for. I was there every time. So I think it's true for a lot of people. They're coming in with a much more sort of social expectation of just having fun and connecting with people. They don't know. And again, I know some of you might be like, yeah, that's their expectation, and they need to realize it's not like that. But who has more experience and understanding of the whole process? It's us. We are the ones with the expertise, not the beginners. Yeah, I totally can get away with not dancing with beginners. I have every right not to spend my energy on anything other than what I want, because this is my time. And I have that. Sometimes I go in with that attitude. It's my time. It's my dance. I don't want to be responsible for anybody else's experience. It's my escape. Sure. And at the same time, the other is true as well, that when I see a beginner and they're lost and they're just standing there in the corner and nobody's asking them to dance, yeah, like that also exists. Like, that's true. That's there. And it's our choice. I think the sweet spot is when nobody is being asked to do more than what they're willing. Like, it doesn't work to blame the leaders, for example, right? Like, there's been a lot of hate towards the leader. Leaders only like young people, young women. And so leaders need to do this and they need to do that. And I can tell that for some leaders, they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that they need to do something else. There are other ways to bridge that gap without having to put all of the responsibility on one particular group, whether it's the organizers or the leaders or the young dancers versus the old dancers. When I think about the idea of the golden age of tango, like 1930s, 40s, that time period when people talk about it with this nostalgic look and they say, oh, there was so much tango. Tango was on the radio and milongas were packed and the orchestras had to play 3 gigs in one night at 3 different milongas, and there was all this competition and there was all this music being created. And don't we want another golden age of tango? Don't we want to have that energy pulsing and creativity? And who's to say that awkward, beginner with the wrong everything, doesn't dance well, the wrong body type, but they become some incredible musician or composer or whatever. Like, we don't know. We don't know. And I've been surprised. I've had people come to tango as beginners and they would have a lesson with me and I'd be like, yeah, this person's not going to make it. And then I see them years later and they're doing amazing. And I'm like, wow, I'm the worst predictor of that sometimes. So you never know. You never know. And that's why, collectively speaking, if we want that future for tango, we want the golden age of tango, we want milongas that are selling out, we want tango to be respected and to have the funding to do big events and whatever, like if we want that growth, then we do need to think in those terms. And every person, according to their personality and their sociability, can play a role, because Tango is an ecosystem, right? It requires certain parts. It doesn't work if it's just the organizers doing all the work. And it doesn't work if the organizers don't do any work and they just rely on the energy of the room to just sort of work itself out. It's got to be like different pieces working together. That's what I've seen create the best results, is when you have certain people in place to do certain things and you have like a good team together. You know, I had to look at myself and my own dance strategy to see where do I fit in to this context practically. Because, you know, you can talk the talk, but what does it mean to actually walk the talk, right? And I have learned a lot from one particular person, and that is my husband. He is one of the people who will he just wants to connect. He just wants to connect. He's very curious about people. He will strike up a conversation with anyone, any Uber driver, any person standing in the street. Like that's his personality. That's not my personality. But I had to observe the impact he was having, because he a lot of times will seek out people who are sitting down, who are not getting the dances. It's not something that he is coming to from this perspective of like, oh, I need to do this thing for the community. It's just like, that's his personality. And watching him, I kind of started reflecting on my own personality. And I tend to be a little bit more like, you know, a little bit more of a badger, and like I'll like go in a corner sometimes, and I don't like talking to people. And I have noticed that about myself, and I accept that about myself. But at the same time, I've noticed that when I do have the will and the energy to do something different, I kind of clock that and I take the opportunity. So at big events, for example, at festivals, it was a conscious effort on my part to dance with people that I saw were not necessarily getting the dances that they wanted, or that they were getting at all, right? There was that decision on my part, not because, I thought that they were going to be amazing dances, right? But because I was like, look, this person needs to dance. And especially with someone like me who has a lot of visibility, and there's dancers like me who other people are watching, and I'm watching other dancers like that, and we're modeling for other people. So when I see a very advanced dancer who's somebody who's a teacher and an organizer, when I see them dancing with people who are not virtuosic and amazing, when I see them dancing with beginners or somebody who's coming in who doesn't know any better, like I see that I clock that. That's very noticeable. So I want to model that. I want to give that exposure to someone who might not get it otherwise. That's a choice that I've made for myself, and that works with who I am as a person. There's other things that people can do that don't require dancing. Like if you're the kind of person who's like, I can't dance with beginners. It's painful. Especially if you're a woman, and beginner leaders are definitely much harder to dance with than beginner followers. That is kind of the reality. And that's why beginner followers can actually do well at a milonga. Beginner leaders, yeah. So one thing that you can do that's not dance related is just talking to people, right? Like if you see somebody who's new, just chatting with them and saying hello and asking about them is like already such a huge piece. So you can do that. You can definitely play a huge role in someone's experience of tango just by doing that, just by chatting with them, So if you are listening to this and you're the kind of person who's like, yeah, I want to contribute. I want to learn how else I can help the community. And you have that as part of your makeup, your personality. Then just know that there's definitely things you can do. You can make a world of difference. And in every community, there's a sprinkling of people who are like that, who are super generous, and they don't have like those sort of difficulty with connecting with new people, and they do want to help. So we need to cultivate more of a role for those people. And sometimes they rise to the positions of, volunteers and helping the organizers, being part of the organizing team, volunteering at the front. They're the ones who are just always there smiling. They want to hug you. They'll dance with you anytime. We need more of those people, basically, is what I'm saying. We need to have a mixture, right, to offset different energy, because it doesn't work if you only have people who are like super introverted. I'm a super introverted person. I need to be around extroverted people, honestly. If I was not surrounded by extroverted people, I would never go anywhere or do anything, because my natural state of being is inertia. That's my nature. And it's the role of the extroverts to sort of mobilize me and get me to like move. And I think that's the same thing that works within Tango communities, is that you have certain people who, they really don't want to socialize. They're not there for socializing. They're there to dance, and they have laser focus. They're competitors. They just want to dance. They don't want to interact. Fine. There's a place there for them. Then there's people who are more outgoing and they want to connect. And those are the people that can make the difference. And also coming up with environments where dancers are more casual, right? So like, for example, I've been playing with this idea. I haven't seen this in action, but I feel like this could work really well. Is if at the milonga, the first hour, you just dance one song with the person, or the first half hour. And the second half hour, you dance two, and then it builds up to four after some time. Alt is a great thing to add for beginners. So if you know that this is a milonga that attracts a lot of beginners, to provide some alt at the beginning or mixed in, that really helps. Every time I'm overwhelmed by how many people love dancing alternative. And I know alternative has this like the ugly duckling reputation, but alternative is legitimately a valid way of bridging the gap for people between being a complete novice and graduating to understanding tango music. When I started tango music sounded completely weird to me. I didn't understand it. It didn't sound good to me. I didn't like it. So I danced alt, a lot of alt, and eventually my ear developed, and now I'm obsessed with tango music. But I had to have that runway, and there's a lot of people like me. Not everybody's going to like tango music right away, and that's another thing we have to understand. We want everybody to have this appreciation of the music, but we typically are just expecting people to like it. We're just like, you just must understand how special this music is. I've noticed the organization of the space and the flow of the energy in the room has such a huge impact. Any milonga that creates spaces for people to talk off the dance floor is such a great strategy, because in that space, they're not expected to dance. So if there's like a space off the dance floor where it's like obvious, you're just socializing, you're not capaceoing. When that happens, that's like where you can talk, and people who are more introverted, who don't want to necessarily speak with strangers right off the bat, it's much easier in that kind of environment, because there's groups of people. You can kind of come in and move into conversations and move out, and it's a little bit more intimate in that way. Women leading, that's been a huge support for the community, because especially when it comes to new women coming into the scene, if those women are not getting the attention, they will a lot of times connect with women leaders and get dances that way. So that's a great pathway. And typically women leaders have a lower expectation or a lower bar for, beginners or coming in. Like I know some men might have like a certain attachment to a certain level, perhaps, but women leaders, I think in general, we're a lot more generous with beginners, because we know what it's like not to get dances. So that can be a proactive way of making, bridging that space between new people and tango. So yeah, let's just continue to build on this momentum, because we can always do more. to grow the scene.